Skull Buffs, baby.
It is a huge week for two Buffalo's basketball squads as J.R. Payne leads the women's team to Kansas City for the Big-12 tournament, and Tad Boyle's got to rally the troops as they push to play Arizona in their toughest matchup of the season before a do-or-die stretch in the Big-12 tournament. The Colorado Buffaloes are gearing up for a huge week for both teams, and we are here to talk about it on SBS Basketball Live. I'm Liam Howard in place of Shane Holcomb, who is in Kansas City currently for the women's tournament, but I'm alongside Oliver Hayes, Xavier McNevitz, and Leo Rivera, ready to talk Buffs basketball. We're going to start off with the week in review. The Buffaloes men's team took on Kansas State, Houston, and Utah, won 2 out of 3, and it was overall an up-and-down week for them. And then the women's team, of course, the tough loss to BYU. We're going to start talking women's. We'll go with you, Xavier. What did you see in that women's game against BYU?
Honestly, that fourth quarter might have been the worst quarter of basketball I've ever watched in my career. And I coached 10U basketball a couple winters back, right? I mean, they got outscored 27-6, and they got outscored 24-2 in the first 9. It was just terrible basketball. They fumbled their destiny, fumbled a double bye in the Big 12 tournament. They had 5 turnovers, 2 for 15 shooting. It was terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. That 27-6 outscoring came in the fourth quarter of that game. It was a complete collapse for the women's team. Leo, you can talk either or, men's or women's. Who would you like to talk about?
Definitely. If you look at that BYU game specifically, Desiree Wooten had a good performance. She was the one really leading the charge, and she seemed to be the one providing the spark as of late. But what was really disappointing to see your best player, and like Jade Masagawa, not step up there, Xavier, especially down the stretch.
Didn't attempt a shot.
When you need her to come out and play her best game, like you said, didn't attempt a shot, and it just makes it really difficult to come out and win.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at the men's side of things, Oliver, what did you see this week?
I mean, things kind of just went as expected. The Buffs were matched up with one of the best teams in the conference with Houston, and then they had the 2 worst teams in the conference with Kansas State and Utah, and the Buffs performed exactly how they thought they would. I mean, it wasn't the prettiest thing, especially against Kansas State, where they had 17 turnovers, even though they won that game by more than double digits. Or not more than double digits, but by double digits. That'd be crazy if they won by triple digits. That'd be wild. But obviously in the Houston game, got trounced by an angry Houston Cougars team that had lost 3 straight for the first time in like almost a decade. It had been 9 years. So very tough environment there, even though I didn't think they played too poorly, just overmatched simply. And then at Utah, had the advantage in the front court and did what they were supposed to. They executed on both sides. And even though Utah made a run at the end, Utah was kind of just making shots. They got hot and made it a ball game. But like I said, things pretty much went as expected, and expected was pretty good. I mean, 2 out of 3 isn't bad.
Yeah, overall, the Buffaloes were favored against Kansas State. The Houston was favored by minus 18.5, and then Utah was actually favored minus 1.5, but still a very toss-up game right there, and the Buffaloes did come out on top. Looking at the women's team specifically now, though, the 2 straight losses to end the regular season, not what they were hoping for at all in terms of their seeding in the Big 12 tournament, their March Madness resume. Overall, just a disastrous last couple games to end off their regular season. Does this alter any of your confidence for their Big 12 tournament run? We'll start with you, Xavier. What's your confidence looking like in this team now?
Yeah, I'm going to drop this stat real quick, but it was the first time having back-to-back losses at the end of the regular season since J.R. Payne's 4th season with Colorado, and she's been there 10 years, right? I think, honestly, I don't think it did much to their confidence. I just think they're more motivated now. When I talked to them yesterday, Zion Walker and Coach Payne said that they're honestly more motivated now, and they've had some of their best practices of the year. And so looking at the tournament, if they play Kansas or UCF, I think that they can win one of those games. And if they take that same motivation and those disheartening losses to Kansas, they can honestly upset Baylor in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, absolutely. And JR just got her contract extended through 2031. This new Fernando Lovo leading this new look athletics department, they believe in her clearly, and they could be motivated going into this tournament. Leo, we'll go on to you. What do you see from this team?
Definitely, the last two games seem to be some offensive concerns for the Buffaloes there, Liam. But the thankful thing is that those are something they can clean up. The defense, the fundamentals there, that's been what's carried this team throughout the season, their consistency there. That's what's going to be able to travel with them to Kansas City, to this Big-12 tournament. And like you said, they're going to be able to get a shot at potentially a team that's already beat them. They're going to be very upset and have that kind of rebound. But at the end of the day, it's a new season. Those losses are in the past. You have to flush them. You can either let them drown you or they can motivate you. And like you said, Xavier, I feel like these losses could be motivation for the women's team going into this tournament.
Yeah, that's absolutely what was the case last season. They lost most of their last 4 games down the stretch before the Big 12 tournament, yet still turned around and won their first 2 games of the Big 12 tournament. J.R. Payne certainly knows how to coach life back into a team after a tough stretch at the end of the season. Oliver, do you think that's going to happen again?
I mean, I think it definitely could happen. That's what a lot of people can think. We've seen it happen in unlikely circumstances with even this season with some upsets that this Buffs team has pulled off. And as I said, I believe 2 weeks ago on this show, they have 2 of the 3 things that make a team scary in March, because they have defense and rebounding. While the 3-point shooting isn't necessary there, and defense and rebounding can put the Buffs in any game. And they've been super gritty throughout this whole entire season. I think that even though they've had this little bit of a tough stretch, they can bounce back. You brought up a great point with J.R. Payne's contract extension. They believe in her. That should be some good mojo and good energy for her and the team. And heading to Kansas City, I think they could definitely make some big noise depending on what happens in this UCF-Kansas game that we're going to talk about in just a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. That Kansas and UCF game is going on right now. We're going to keep you all updated throughout the show to see who Colorado's opponent is going to be tomorrow at 7 p.m. Mountain Time from Kansas City. But switching back over to the men's side of things, which of these games, there were 3 games this week, Kansas State, Houston, and then Utah, the Houston and Utah games, both on the road. Which of these 3 games showed you the most of this team's true identity? We'll start with you, Xavier.
Yeah, I mean, Utah and Kansas State are 2 wins, right? I mean, Kansas State was an ugly one. They took care of Utah, but I got to go to Houston and Kelvin Sampson's squad, right? I think that game just really, truly showed that they can't defend the backcourt, right, which has kind of been the trend all season.
Yeah, absolutely. Those guards for Houston are known for their ability to make tough shots. They're not going to give you any breathing room, and the Buffaloes gave them the breathing room, and they were able to capitalize on it. Leo, we'll look to you. Which game showed the most about this Buffs team?
Yeah, I agreed with Houston as well, because it's not the fact that Colorado necessarily played bad, like Oliver was alluding to earlier. It's just the fact that they were outmatched, right? And that's kind of what they've seen. The teams that they are, outsizing and can match up well against, they're able to compete with, and the ones that are bigger, they simply out-rebound them, and they struggle on defense. And I feel like that's kind of been the pattern. Oliver was talking about it earlier today with me off camera, and the fact that this team's very, very cut and dry. They're going to beat the teams they're supposed to beat. They're going to lose to the teams that are supposed to beat them on paper, and that's just kind of the way the season's been.
Oliver, which one showed the most to you?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of stuck between Utah because I felt like the Kansas State game was just very uncharacteristic. I think they went in with the mindset against Kansas State that they're playing, one of the second to last place team in the conference that didn't have their head coach that they started the season with, and that kind of showed even though they picked up the win. So I think that was a little bit more uncharacteristic of the 3. But between Houston and Utah, I mean, like Leo said, like I said earlier, I thought they played fine against Houston, just got more outmatched. And against Utah, the Buffs showed what they can do to teams when they are clicking, when they can shoot the ball well. Because I forget exactly what the final mark ended up being, but I'm pretty sure they had 9 3-pointers in that game against Utah and shot over 50% from the 3-point line. That was something that a lot of fans expect them to do a lot more throughout the season. So while I don't think the Utah game necessarily showed more of their identity for this season, I think it showed a lot of what this young core can do, especially when Bangad Dak plays well, assuming that he returns with some of those young guys next season.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And Houston is where a big talking point has come from. Tad ejected in the first half of that game. And there has been a lot of speculation all season of people, mostly online, talking about Tad Boyle's job security here at Colorado, a new athletic director coming into the university, as we mentioned. And there have been some calls for his head. This was really a question to see if anyone wants to stir the pot and be on that side, but you were all emphatically against it. Tad's early ejection not playing into his attempt to regain job security. Why are you emphatic on that point, and why does he deserve to keep this job?
Tad is Colorado basketball. I'm under the impression that a lot of those players wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Tad Boyle. I don't think Dak is there because of Tad Boyle. I don't think Isaiah Johnson is there because of Tad Boyle. I don't think any of those players are there without Tad Boyle. And I think, if anything, that Tad ejection kind of just emphasized that point.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of passion going into that Houston game, not willing to give it up, even though Houston was starting to make it look ugly. Leo, I know that that's something you really valued out of it, too.
Yeah, 100%. It shows he cares, right? Because if Tad was just sitting on the sideline, being content with losing, content with mediocrity, then you would be like, all right, it's time to go. Get him up out of there. But this is a guy who's passionate. He's been at this university for well over a decade now, and he's really put in the time and wants to see growth from this young core. And like they talked about, it's been a freshman core all season. They're going to have growing pains. And for Boyle, you got to let it out sometimes, especially when you go on these late runs. You're in Big-12. It's heat of the moment competition. He's had a few, outbursts already, whether it be stoppages or video replay and a couple other things throughout the season. But let the man have some emotion every once in a while. Sometimes you got to take the tech, eat it, and move on to live another day.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a huge game for their resume as well. The Buffaloes, had they won out, a win over Houston and Arizona in the ending stretch of the season would have been huge. A game that he certainly didn't want to see slip away. Oliver, what did you see out of this ejection?
I mean, not much. I mean, the Buffs, they were expected to lose this game, like I talked about earlier. That ended up happening in a much more blowout fashion than I think a lot of us expected. But like I said, Houston was angry. But the two things that I want to highlight, you guys highlighted one of them earlier. But the first one that I want to talk about is, Kelvin Sampson almost got ejected from this game when they were up 35 points with under 10 minutes to go. And, that's part of who Kelvin Sampson is as a legendary head coach that he is, who has created the culture at Houston that has taken them to the national championship and, the rounds alike. And so I guess my point is that maybe the refereeing or on that Saturday was a little suspect. But, it was the next point, which you guys talked about, was the freshmen. How many freshmen would be there without Tad Boyle? It would be hard to say if any of them would be because Tad Boyle has been in the game. He's respected, and he can attract guys to the Big 12. And in that instance, right after he got ejected, it was because Fawaz Taco Afala set an illegal screen. That's a guy who's been trying to find a spot in the rotation all season long. Needs to, if he's assuming he stays with the program, and I want him to stay with the program. He needs to be able to find a role in this rotation for the Buffs to be able to boost this front court. And when the refs aren't calling calls consistently and are calling a tough illegal screen on a young guy who has been known to be physical just because he is stronger than the opponent. I feel like you have to step up and protect your young guy. And so, if anything, it protects him more. And as you go into this offseason and look at protecting, a guy like Taco and the rest of them, whether it's Isaiah Johnson, Josiah Sanders, Jalen Holland, etc., that's the guy you have to keep around.
Yeah, absolutely. Tad is certainly not a guy who shies away from confrontation and never has been. And like you mentioned, that is going to show a lot to this young group when trying to retain them moving forward. But let's take a look. Now that we've got a lot of this season in the rearview mirror, we're going to examine the resumes, whether they're trending towards March Madness, whether they're trending towards other places, as Oliver will talk about later. We're going to analyze both of these resumes. A big hit was taken to the women's team's resume. We'll start with that. Xavier.
Yeah, they fumbled their destiny in Provo. They win in Provo, you're a top 4 seed in the Big 12, you're a March Madness team. Flat out, right? I think if they beat Kansas UCF, if they beat them handedly, that'll put them right back in that conversation. I think they're the first 4 in, or last 4 in, on bracketology right now. And so if they beat Kansas or UCF and upset 3-seeded Baylor, they're going to be sitting comfortably on Selection Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's crazy how quickly a outlook for a season can change, and that happened in the span of a week for this team. Leo, I'll move on to you and talk about this women's team again. How much success do they need now in this Big 12 tournament to overcome what they just experienced?
They need it bad, Liam, and like Xavier was alluding to, they put a lot of pressure on themselves. Not being able to close out, especially when you have a game at home against Utah that was very winnable. Even down to the last minutes, it was still there, and the shots just weren't falling, right? Then you go to BYU, and it's the same thing. It's an issue of just getting gun-shy. You can't be gun-shy at the Big 12 tournament. You got to let those bullets fly, and that's what I expect to see from this women's team come tournament time if they want to make a March Madness run.
I don't think it's been mentioned yet, but, I mean, the Buffs were up 8 points heading into that fourth quarter. They can't allow that to happen. They can't allow a 27-6 run over the span of 10 minutes. It's insane.
Yeah, that will not fly with the top teams in the Big 12. And looking at the men's side, Oliver, things looking bleak, especially after another Quad 1 loss this week. We'll talk about the men's resume right now. What are you seeing from it?
Yeah, I mean, even if they somehow beat Arizona, I think unless they win the Big 12 championship, there's no way that they make March Madness. And, of course, navigating the Big 12 this year is even harder than last year. And yeah, I mean, that whole thing is just an impossible, kind of useless conversation at this point, unless a Cinderella run is incoming. But looking at the NIT and the CBC, or the College Basketball Crown, which they played in last season after finishing last in the Big 12, I think that's where the Buffs will end up. They're in the Big 12, which is a power conference, which has all the deals with both those tournaments and the TV rights and all those things. And if it were up to me, I know the NIT is a little bit more storied. It has a little bit more competitive basketball. College basketball fans know that a little bit more than the College Basketball Crown out in Las Vegas. But when you look at it, the CBC, it has some decent benefits for going to play in it. I believe you get a few $100,000 in NIL if you go and play in it. Of course, if you win, you get, the further you go, the more rewards you get. Same like the NIT. So there's benefits to playing in it. Even if there's, guys like we saw last year, like Harrington Carrington, that sticks out, who hit the transfer portal and is just, showing off for other schools. It's always good to see guys, that maybe aren't having the best time at Colorado to, show off and then, find their place at another school. So, either way, more basketball is better.
If either of those tournaments come knocking, do you think this team takes it this year?
I mean, they definitely have a lot more of a chance than last year, and I think they are a lot more competitive, knowing that they'll be sticking around. I mean, when you look at llast year's team, which was led by Andre Yakimovsky and Julian Hammond, Trevor Baskin, a lot of these, Javon Ruffin, a lot of these guys were seniors that weren't gonna play this year. I mean, they're seniors; they're going to graduate, even though Julian Hammond tried for that court case over the offseason. But if I remember correctly, I don't think he played in the CBC. Sebastian Ranchik was injured. We're not sure about what his status is currently with his injury, but he missed the CBC. And so the Buffs, with the young squad trying to build that momentum, I'm sure that Tad will try and get them ramped up and be like, well, yeah, I mean, if you're trying to stay here, I got. We're here with NIL. We can win more NIL.
Yep.
I mean, this is just a win-win for you guys, and we're in Vegas. Even though, I mean, they're all freshmen, so they can't do anything. But,
Yeah, absolutely.
All fun and games.
Well, speaking of getting ramped up, they still cannot kneel out the clock on this season. They have their biggest game of the year. Arizona is coming up this week. The home court advantage at 9 p.m. at the CU Event Center. Start with you, Xavier. Is it going to be enough to get this team to somehow pull the miracle upset over Arizona?
Tad says all the time that, playing in Boulder is such a advantage, especially when they're playing worse teams that keep it close against them, right? But Arizona's a better team. I don't think the Buffs will lose by 40, but
Sure.
I don't think they'll win.
Yeah, they certainly lost by 40 on the road to Houston. Not a friendly road environment by any means. They're hoping to at least see slightly better. I think they could take maybe a moral victory if it's close. If you're playing a team close like that at home, Leo, do you think that they're going to be able to pull it off?
I'll say this one first. How many replays are there going to be? How many stoppages are they getting? Is it really a home court advantage after that one, Oliver? That's been the question, right? But no, on the real, I think they'll definitely be able to keep it close. It's a late start time. I mean, that's always something.
Sure.
I mean, the football team couldn't do good at night, but this is basketball live. I think it could have implication that don't think it's going to make much of an impact.
Yeah, the quotes exactly from Tad Boyle on the stoppages were hogwash and takes away the home court advantage. So he certainly agrees with you. Oliver, do you think that's going to play a role as well?
I mean, from my standpoint, I just hope the fans show out and see what they could potentially be seeing next year, or what they could be missing out, because I want fans to go out and see this team one last time, or or for the first time if they haven't all season, and see whether or not they are to blame for if they hit the transfer portal. Because that's a big factor. If when they look up in the crowd and they don't see fans supporting them, they know that contributes to NIL, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the big thing that stands out to me. So I hope that motivating factor, along with some of the things that Fernando Lovo has done, like the sports pass bundles and whatnot, hopefully that brings some more fans to the arena, stuff like that. A late contest, maybe fans will be a little bit more rowdy. Take that how you will. And on Elijah Malone's senior day, maybe the big man will step up, especially if Sebastian Rancic isn't available with the big men that Arizona have in the starting lineup and off the bench. They're gonna need to force foul trouble in one way or another. And Elijah Malone, when he's at his best, he can draw some fouls and not only gets to the line, but force those big guys out of the game, which will cause some trouble for Arizona if the Buffs can make that happen.
Yeah, I certainly want to wish a happy Elijah Malone Day to all who celebrate around the world. He will be the only senior that will be honored against Arizona, but could show up, support him, and like you said, it is tough when you're a student at this university as well, playing for the basketball team, and you're not seeing your classmates around you and cheering you on at these games. So that will be huge. But looking back at the women's side of things, they of course are in tournament time right now. They are in the Big 12 tournament and awaiting either UCF or Kansas. That game once again going on right now. If you are the Buffaloes, you got a UCF team that you lost to in one of the most embarrassing games of their season, and then a Kansas team which they have beaten already but has been better season long. Xavier, we'll start with you. Which team are you hoping, if you're the Buffaloes, to see in the next round?
I mean, UCF. They shouldn't have lost that game in the first place, but honestly, that UCF game kind of turned their season around. But yeah, they should. They want to face UCF, but Kansas should smack them 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. UCF has not turned things around after that Colorado win either. That was about the peak of the season for the UCF Knights. Leo, is that the team that the Buffs should hope to see at this point?
Well, it is a team they should hope to see, but I'm doing a little live research here on there, and I'm seeing that Kansas is up pretty big, so it's looking like it's going to be the Jayhawks round one. I was hoping that there could be some revenge there, trying to get back at them from, earlier in the year, but as of now, it's going to be Kansas, so hope the Buffs are ready.
Yeah, maybe a little unfortunate for the Buffaloes that they're not going to be able to get that revenge, and they're kind of just going to have to let that loss sit there as it is for the rest of the offseason. Oliver, do you think that it would be better if UCF pulled this game back, or is Kansas the way they want to go?
Well, UCF is obviously the team you want to play against, not only for the revenge factor, but, like you said, that win over the Buffs was a highlight of their season for a reason. You look across the stat sheet for their conference games, and, they're in the bottom three of the Big 12 in almost every single category. That team should not have beaten the Buffs on that night, but they did. Shout out to them. And, even though the Buffs, definitely won't get a chance, with how bad Kansas is beating them right now, that's the team that the Buffs would want to play, and I don't want to spoil my picks or anything, so yeah, we can move on.
Yeah, it certainly was a road environment the Buffs played in. Not a good one by any means, but it was a road environment. Next up, we are going to move to the Arizona game and the Big 12 tournament as a whole for the Colorado Buffaloes men's team. They still have a little bit to go before they head to Kansas City, but it's been Isaiah Johnson, and then it's been a lot of number two guys that have stepped up at times and not really been consistent in that role. Looking at the Big 12 tournament and the Arizona game, we'll start with you, Xavier. Who would you like to see step up for the Colorado Buffaloes?
Bang out Dak. Yeah, he's been with the team for 3 years, and when he plays good, the team's just better all around. He also needs to get some rebounds. Me and Oliver were talking about this before he just gets boxed out. He's almost too skinny, right? But when he has games with 10-plus boards in the Big 12, he has 4 of those. The Buffaloes are 3-1.
Yeah, absolutely. And when he does step up, it is noticeable as well. When you're just watching on the broadcast, he's making the highlight plays, and then he's grabbing boards. He's also recording some blocks as well, doing the things that Tad Boyle certainly loves to see, and he preaches all the time at any chance that he gets. So Dak is a Tad Boyle and Colorado marquee when he is playing up to his best. Is he who you're looking at as well, Leo?
Well, I was looking at Sebastian Ranchik, actually, if he's going to be healthy. That's kind of going to be the big factor, because if not, that means you're going to rely on Elijah Malone. So I guess, can Elijah Malone step up? That's been the question for 2 years, right? I think we've all seen the answer for that one. But for short term, you definitely would like to see either him or Bengat Dak, like you alluded to, Xavier.
Yeah, absolutely. Those two were expected to be the leaders in scoring and potentially rebounding this season for the Buffaloes, and they have while Dak does lead in rebounds per game right now, the scoring has not quite been what the Buffaloes were expecting out of those two. Oliver, are you looking to see both of them step up as well?
Yeah, I mean, those are the two guys that I'm looking to step up. I mean, the backcourt has done what they've needed to do all season with Isaiah Johnson, Barrington Hargress. The freshmen are coming along. And so Bengat Dak and Sebastian Ranchik have been the clear indicators of on any given night of whether the Buffs are going to be a good team or a great team. And so those are the two guys that I'm looking for them to step up come Big 12 tournament time. I think you need to look at the rest of the front court too, especially if Sebastian Ranchik is out. I mean, you guys said Elijah Malone, but Alon McKaylee, Taco Afala. You could even look at a guy like Josiah Sanders that has slid down and played more of that power forward who can help out in the front court a tiny bit. So there's some other guys to consider, but I really think Bengat Dak just with how well he's defended the rim as of late. Obviously his offense helps and things like that, but he's defended the rim well. And when he's playing well offensively, that opens up a lot more space, not only for everyone, but specifically for Isaiah Johnson and Barrington Hargress, who Bengat Dak is often the primary screener for. And when those guys when the point guards can pass the ball, get to the mid range, when specifically with Barrington Hargress, Isaiah Johnson getting all the way to the rim, that's when the Buffs are at their best. And of course, everyone loves a good old Dak attack. So
absolutely,
that's my pick if I had to pick one Buff for the Big 12 tournament to step up.
Yeah, Dak has been showing up over the last 3 games. Sebastian Ranchik, of course, the injury, as you mentioned, Leo, but if he can turn it back around and have both of those two at full strength, that's going to be huge for the Buffaloes in these really important games. We're going to look back at a couple of those games from this past week. Of course, Dak's incredible performance, what Elijah Malone did in the absence of Sebastian Ranchik, and much more. We're going to send it to the monitor for film review. Welcome into Film Review. I am Liam Howard alongside Oliver Hayes. The Buffaloes played 3 games this week, first taking on Kansas State at home, then they went on the road to face Houston and Utah, and they won 2 out of 3, but the Houston game was rather ugly. Lots of turnovers, which is uncharacteristic for the Buffaloes this season, but then also struggling on pick-and-roll defense. We're going to take a look at that, Oliver, starting with the Houston game.
Yeah, the Cougars, they were mad. They were on a 3-game losing streak. I mean, they played some tough opponents, all ranked, and they then had Colorado at home. So why not beat up on a team that's in the bottom half of the Big 12? And looking at this pick-and-roll defense here, we got 3 clips. And Milos Uzan, he went for a career-high 26 points. Kingston Flemings, he was on triple-double watch. But in this pick-and-roll, you can see Khalifa Sakyo stepping up in place of JoJo Tugler, who experienced some early foul trouble, hence why Colorado was up a little early, 10-2. But Sakyo, with the big screen, is able to keep up Isaiah Johnson just enough that even though Bengat Dak has a good hedge to be able to retreat back to Sakyo to take away the role, that Uzan is able to step up and hit the first of a few threes that he hit in this contest. Looking at this second clip, they got Kingston Flemings here on this wing, and it is Josiah Sanders and Alon McKaylee with the deal, trying to keep him on this sideline with Kristen Axe setting the screen, but in focusing so much on trying to keep hold of him on this sideline, he just takes advantage of that and goes baseline straight to the rim for a layup. That looks a lot like Isaiah Johnson, if you ask me. And in this third clip, you have Kingston Flemings again, this time JoJo Tugler back in the game. Houston's up a ton in this contest. It's Isaiah Johnson, Sebastian Ranchik in the pick and roll. It looks a lot like the first clip, but with the hedge. But Flemings gets downhill, kicks out to Uzan, and he hits another 3 in this contest. And that's how the Cougars were able to run away with this one. But, I mean, we'll look at the turnovers in a second.
Yeah, absolutely. Houston sports some incredibly tough guards that are tough for anyone to contain, but the Buffaloes struggled especially. And then turnovers, as we mentioned, were incredibly potent for the Buffaloes. They gave up 17 in the game against Kansas State and then 15 against Houston. Did limit it to 7 against Utah, but it really was costly against these Houston Cougars. We'll look at one now, and then we'll transition into the Utah game with the turnover as well.
Yeah, like you said, won in both games. In this Houston one, I mean, there were a plethora with them having 15. Banggot Dak could not catch an alley-oop. Kingston Flemings did what he did all night, pushed the break and scored. And this was the last bucket he scored. He went down with a tough injury and went out. I think he was okay. But then in this contest, Barrington Hargreaves just kind of falls asleep. Terrence Brown, he jumps the pass, intercepts that, and he rises up for an emphatic jam and gave the Utes some momentum early on.
Yeah, the Buffaloes this season have been second, actually, in the Big 12 behind that Houston team in least turnovers allowed per game. 10.3 has been the average, but during this three-game stretch, 13.3 was the average, and that Utah game certainly brought that number down. But while the numbers were a bit lower against Utah, that first turnover was the first of a couple ugly ones they had in that number, but they were able to improve as the game went on and then also improve in the pick and roll defense.
Yeah, definitely. And then looking at the offense for the Buffs down the stretch of this Utah game, I mean, went up big in that first half, even though Utah's offense helped them. The Utes come back in the second half. The Buffs pushed the break, forcing 9 turnovers in the first half. I think this was off a miss, but Josiah Sanders off of Barrington Hargreaves' pass finds Isaiah Johnson in the corner. He hits a three-pointer. He had 22 points on the night, tying Banggot Dak with the team high. But I want you to look at Elijah Malone on this possession. He's been getting a little bit of flack lately because of his lack of play, of quality play for being the only senior on the team. But with Sebastian Ranchik out doing the injury, he stepped up and scored in the post in his few minutes. Here he gets possession on the smaller James Okonkwo and scores over him. On this next play, a baseline out of bounds play, they throw it into him just so Barrington Hargreaves can come off on a dribble handoff, and Hargreaves gets that. He gets some attention. Keanu Dawes doesn't help down on Malone. He gets another layup. And now on this last possession, this is what Malone is very fantastic at. He hasn't been able to showcase it too much this season, but especially against smaller opponents. He doesn't even touch the ball, but he takes up so much space and takes up so much gravity due to what he did in the first few clips that Josiah Sanders kicks out to Banggot Dak, who hits a 3, which was part of his career-high 22 points and a double-double performance as the Buffs picked up that second of 2 of 3 wins in the last few games, which was huge leading up into the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah, certainly. And one thing that Tad Boyle has constantly been positive about with Elijah Malone is that he is a load down there in the paint. He draws those defenders' attention, and he opens up shots like that on the perimeter. Banggot Dak isn't usually the one that's fielding them, but that he got it in that situation. That really has been the way that the Buffaloes have succeeded when he's been in the ball game for them. But 2 out of 3, they were able to win this past week. They look forward to Arizona now. Huge game coming up, and then the Big 12 tournament right after that. We will send it back at the desk. On a big week of games for the Buffaloes, and now they are going to be turning their attention forward. But we have an update for you on the Kansas and UCF game, which is going to determine Colorado's opponent in their first matchup on the women's side of the Big 12 championship. Kansas currently up 39-26 over UCF at the end of the third, so all signs are pointing to Kansas. But we're going to go into some pick'ems here, assuming that it is Kansas moving forward. Who do you have the Buffaloes or the Jayhawks emerging victorious in the first game of the women's tournament, Xavier?
Yeah, I think it'll be Colorado either way. I think they're motivated after that end to the regular season. It's going to be close. They're going to need like Jane Masagayo, Ziana Walker, Desiree Wooten. They're going to need their stars to shine against Kansas, in Kansas especially too. And the Jayhawks also have the 5th best offense in the Big 12 with 73 points per game. So the Buffs defense is going to need to show up and show out.
Absolutely. Leo, how about you?
100%. I think we talked about earlier this, losing skid being motivation for the Buffs going into the tournament. I think they're going to have that motivation, right? They're going to be a little bit rested. They got to sit there and watch an opponent play first before they get to come out and get them. I think that's going to be an advantageous for them. I like J.R. Payne and her squad. Buffalo's for the dub.
Absolutely, and you mentioned earlier, of course, them needing to stack up some wins in this tournament. That's where it's going to start with the Jayhawks. Jayhawks now crossing 40 points, up 41-28 over UCF. Oliver, do you have the Buffaloes emerging victorious over the Jayhawks?
Yeah, I gotta echo the fellas and pick CU over Kansas in this one. I mean, I picked them over UCF for sure, but I think the Buffs, given that they beat Kansas once this season, even though it was a tough battle, they they're hungry, they're gritty, like I said earlier, and can definitely pick up a win in this not the first round of the Big 12 tournament, but their first round.
Yeah, and only 3 pick'ems this week. We're going to turn it back to the men's side of things. A pretty big matchup in the men's leagues ahead of the Big 12 championship. Number 10, Texas Tech taking on BYU on the road. So that road environment going to be at play against Texas Tech. Xavier, do you have BYU or Texas Tech winning this game?
I got Texas Tech winning this game. I think BYU plays better at home, but Texas Tech should win despite having Toppin. But I think if they shut down Bonsa, they should be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, Texas Tech already beat BYU earlier in the season. Leo, do you think it'll be the same result?
Yeah, they did. I think they're the better team straight up, and I think they proved that earlier in the season. And, as you mentioned, even without Toppin, they've still been able to continue rolling, and they've still been rocking. So go ahead and pin them in for a dub.
And are you going the same way, Oliver?
Yeah, I mean, Texas Tech, I love what Grant McCaslin has done with that program the last few seasons. He is a fantastic coach, and even without JT Toppin, he has not that it matters to him, but he's proven me wrong a little bit with how he's been able to keep the Red Raiders train going, especially with Luke Bamgoya, I think that's how you pronounce it, coming off the bench and playing some great minutes in place of JT Toppin for the Red Raiders. And even though BYU has also proven me wrong in wake of Richie Saunders' ACL tear with the Iowa State upset, I just think that Texas Tech, they have some good momentum going right now, and Grant McCaslin, like I said, Kevin Young's a great coach as well, but Grant McCaslin obviously a lot more proven.
Absolutely. And then for the Colorado Buffaloes, of course, at the end of the week, it'll be the Buffaloes hosting the number 2 Arizona Wildcats at the CU Event Center. 9 p.m. tip-off time, home environment going for the Buffaloes. Xavier, do you think it's enough for the Buffs to get it done, or is Arizona coming out on top?
Well, I said it earlier in the show. I don't think the Buffs will lose by 40, right? I think that they might keep it close a little bit to start the game, but I think Arizona will pull away. I think Arizona's going to win by 17, 15 points.
Yeah, quite the tough team in Arizona coming into Boulder. Leo, do you think Colorado gets the job done?
Now, got to remember, what did you say earlier in the show? International Elijah Malone Day for all those
Yes,
to
it
celebrate?
is.
Do not sleep on the Colorado Buffaloes. At 9 p.m. at the CU Event Center, Tad Boyle's last regular season game of the year. He's been fired up. This team's going to be fired up. They're going to lose by under 10. Okay?
Okay.
They're going to lose by under 10.
Although they are not a moral victories team, that is certainly something that they could build on moving into the Big 12 tournament. And then, Oliver, that leaves you. Who are you taking, Colorado versus Arizona?
Yeah, I mean, even under 10 is somewhat of a bold choice. Arizona is gonna take the Buffs. I'm pretty sure, even though it is in the event center, the altitude is something. But Arizona's front court, and honestly, that whole team is something else. When you look at their back court as well with Jane Bradley and Braden Berries, you look at then the front court with Cole Pete, Krivas, and Toby walking off the bench. I mean, I could go on and on. I raved too much about him, 2 weeks ago on this show, anyways. So unfortunately, for the Buffs fans, I think Arizona will avoid the magic that CU put on a few years ago with Devin Batty and them.
Maybe a little jinx.
maybe it'll be a little reverse jinx for the Buffaloes, but the Buffaloes do have that huge game coming up, and then of course on the women's side they got the Big 12 tournament all week long. It'll be interesting to see how far they go. But thank you for joining us here on SBS Basketball Live. For Liam Howard alongside Oliver Hayes, Xavier McNevitz, and Leo Rivera. You heard it here first.